So peace, everybody. So let me know if you're able to hear me, so we make sure that the sound is on point. So how y'all doing today? Okay, all right. So just let me know in the inbox if you're able to hear me. I see some people on here. Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So, hey, peace, everybody. So we're going to do another episode on the elements of attraction. We're going to do a reading, and this is all being based upon some of you that's kind of new chiming in, and some of you that's already been kind of chiming in. There's a book that was released called Elements of Attraction, that I wrote, and it really takes you into um, it's part of the relationship numerology piece, but it really, as people realize, there's a lot of level of insight and understanding and accuracy that kind of can come from when we start to look at the energetic fingerprint that's in our soul and how it shows up in our attractions, what attracts to us, what we try to avoid, what we resist, what type of environments that we thrive in a relationship, and so on. So what I want to do is I'm doing these live readings based out of the information that's inside the book, Elements of Us. So some of you are interested in getting it. Some of you have been grabbing it. Thanks in advance. There is a link in the description um, of this broadcast right quick, and you can just click it and get the book. So what we're doing is we're tapping into the book, and I'm basically just kind of demonstrating and showing you as a tool, so you can apply this into any kind of relationship. Whether it's at work, whether they're loved ones, your children, family, or so forth. So it's a very good quick hitter way um, to assess and to profile and to decode yourself or others, which is very valuable. So we got people been submitting to do anonymous live readings. So we have one today. We're going to get into it. Okay. And so the soul numbers, the soul code for this individual, it is a lady, it is a woman. And her soul numbers are 6862. 6862. So y'all can go ahead and show some love and share this on YouTube as we get into this. So 6862. And so there's a lot that we pull from this number, and we're going to pull it. We're going to look at her attractions and hopefully share some information. Feel free to, and even though I'm reading hers, some of you might have similar numbers in your soul profile that you can identify with a certain thing. So just feel free to vibe out. This is all some positive type stuff. And so we're going to kind of uncover and unpack what her numbers reveal. So first of all, y'all hear me talk about the masculine energy and the energy positions that they take. So when you look at hers, um, she she's predominantly androgynous. She has a lot of androgynous energy, and she has an equal split between the masculine and the feminine energy. But she has a lot of dominant position. Okay, she has a lot of dominant position, and she kind of has a weaker score in her submissive. Now, let me say this early on as you listen to what I just said right there. She has a strong dominance. Her score is like a 4 out of 4. And so inside the living soul numerology system, even though she has a low submissive score, because she has what we refer to as an extreme polarity in one of the positions, it can take shape and look like she has more submissiveness than what her score has. And due to her strong androgynous energy, and her no neutral score, there's probably a lot of aspects to her that probably comes across having a submissive aspect, but probably throw people off because she has a lot of dominance in her. So the question is, how's that dominance look? How does that manifest for her if she has a low score in masculine energy? And we're going to tap into that. I'm going to pull that out. So this is a woman. And so what's interesting is, and y'all hear me talk all the time, when we think about dominance, we think masculine first. But we see right here, when we talk about dominance, we're referring to someone that has dominance and they operate from an androgynous dominant space. How does that look? How does that show up in relationships? And what is what's the draw? A piece. All right. So, and with the scoring, this is where we get the elements. And there's five soul elements. We refer to them as the earth, wood, the water, the metal, the air, and the fire. And so we're pulling a lot of the data per se, or the assessment from that. So let me establish, we have what we refer to as the energy hierarchy. In other words, the framework, the energetic framework that we um, are more fitted into. In a lot of cases, by upbringing, societal impressions, and so forth, a lot of us are primarily oriented into a masculine dominant energy hierarchy, where in the reality is that might not be suited for how your soul needs to function. In her case right here, she falls in line with an androgynous energy hierarchy. That's where her soul will thrive. So I can imagine a good thing with androgynous, that's adaptable. So I'm quite sure she might have past relationships or current ones or whatever. Or no, she adjusted and adapted, there's no big deal. But truly down to her soul level in terms of if she would be selfish and look at really herself and see in terms of what really that she feels home in, what she feels thriving in, it's going to be more form fitting into the androgynous energy hierarchy. So what does that? So what does that look like? What does that entail? First of all, like I said, high adaptability. The other thing is they're very open to dynamic role switching. Now, if we think about it, when we talk about relationships, everybody's talking about roles, 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 roles. Well, people with a lot of androgynous energy, that actually kind of bothers them because they understand realistically that some roles you might not be fitted for, right? Just because you're a woman, does that mean that you have to be all submissive roles when you're competent in other roles that might look more dominant or might look more masculine? Do I sit back to that and the other person's not competent in a dominant role or a masculine orientation? So this is where I was talking about. This is a seismic shift going on in relationships because a lot of the times we don't want to push the pause button and look at, like, is it really making sense? And it's not dismissing the roles we have to each other, but we're relating based on primary roles first versus our capacity to adjust to each other and the reality of what we bring or what we build or what was primary a skill set and a competency uh, position that someone already has. Do they sacrifice that and you don't have it? Come on. So this individual innately understands that. Okay, I don't know if they're on or not, but if you're on, definitely give me feedback if I'm on the right track. And so they're into dynamic role switching. For example, bring it down home. Let's say, on a domestic level, who's going to wash the dishes? Ironically, if you in Generation X, we always think, oh, the woman's going to be the one to wash the dishes. But what if the man has no problem and he's more adept at more cleaning the house, and he might be more adept at cooking more than the wife? What happened? So in other words, androgynous energy understands that, and it's like, hey, you do that better, you do that naturally, it's like you enjoy it. You take on that role, and I'll take on another role. I'll manage the bills. They might be better at that. So this person right here, that's an androgynous energy hierarchy, an example of that. Okay. So she's big into that dynamic role switching and mutual regulation. So in other words, they're not too caught up in trying to police you. A lot of times we hear in a lot of relationships, we hear a lot of that. We're all trying to police each other. Androgynous energy, androgynous oriented people or not, they don't care about trying to police you. They trust how you regulate yourself. Now, if they're in a shadow, it's a whole nother thing. I'm just talking about if it's in a very constructive expression. Okay. And so they have a sense of mutual regulation. In other words, they can, they're not too caught up in some of the stuff that people, we hear about people, oh, are you doing this? If I'm not around, what are you doing? They're not worried about that. But androgynous people is really into flow, right? And so the end of the day is they trust that. Um, and so now when you look at another part of energy, the energy hierarchy is we talk about the dominance that she has, right? And so am I confused because like women she might look open flow, fluid, submissive, but then all of a sudden it's like you see this level of assertiveness that kicks in and is strong. And it's like, whoa, that's different. What is that? Well, because she has a strong androgynous dominant energy. So I say when you got energy, we got masculine, androgynous, and feminine, but then the energy can take a position. So even though she has a weaker score in the masculine energy, she has a lot in the dominant. So she's got a very assertive. So she's gonna exude in a lot of aspects masculine type of characteristics or qualities or whatever traits that we might associate with it. So, but this dominance will kick in when she likes to take control when things are aligned. When she sees things are aligned and they align with her, she has no problem with stepping in and leading and guiding. She prefers that. She might prefer that, or she has no problem with that. You know. So also how she, because she has dominance, so there's an aspect of like, so does she like to lead? Does she like to kind of, you know, add her input, um, help initiate the direction or suggest a direction something goes? That's probably there, and that comes when she knows, when she has a level of awareness in an area and has a level of competency. You're going to see her dominance kick in, and she's going to want to exercise and influence that way. So if you're caught up in roles, that might become a clash inside a relationship, especially if someone's under a traditional orientation or they have more of that patriarch or more of that religious slant emphasis in regards to relating or having relationships. So I can reckon, look at her numbers, if she probably dealt with a lot of tradition oriented individuals, it probably can bring clashes. And it probably happens around right here because even though she's flexible and adaptable, she probably can roll with the punches. But in the long run, you can find this consistent irritation that probably shows up in your experiences because you operate technically under an androgynous hierarchy. You can operate and you can intermingle with other ones, but that's your pretty much that's your mold. And there's a level of open-mindedness, flexibility that needs to be inside a relational dynamic for you to feel, optimal, seen, validated inside a relationship. Okay. And so when we look at her numbers, so we talk about the elements. So her strong elements are the water, metal, and the air. The metal's leading, the metal's number one, and the water and the air are, uh, they're even. So she approaches relationships more than likely from the metal space, um, in the water and the air. Now, just look at this real quick. This individual probably, and she has her weaker elements are the fire and the earthwood. And so this individual, in terms of when we talk about relationship endurance and resiliency, this is the woman who can go through challenges in relationships. They won't jump off ship. Um, she doesn't mind sticking to it if she has to. So this is, I think I did another episode talking about, and typically these kind of women, and ladies, if some of y'all are on here listening to this, because the old saying, we say the good guys finish last. I want to say, the idea is like the builder, or the stick to it type of women. They seem to get overlooked by all the other feminine type of personas that exude itself. The cheerleading woman or the princess oriented type of woman. Seem like early on in life, seem like they get more esteemed. But understand that you have a long lasting value, and you have an impact on longevity of relationships. So you probably can find yourself, probably have connections with people that's been around forever. Don't feel guilty about that, you know. But because you have a lot of metal, you might have a lot of these rules going on, and it might make you blind. I'm gonna say this again, a lot of because a lot of your ladies got this metal going on. This you got this all for nothing mentality. I'm gonna have to go there. And here's the thing: you got all for nothing going on, but the question is, if you don't have the all, then you have nothing. So where do you need to add in the flexibility? Now, this individual has a lot of androgynous energy, strong water, and so based off of her numbers, I don't think she's fixed in ideas like that. She might have certain standards, but she's open to understand that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Okay. But there are people that has this all for nothing, and they end up with nothing, and they keep getting older and older and older and older and older and older, and they're missing the cues of lessons in life. Is like, hey, you can't have all for nothing. You're going to have to open yourself to other different expressions or other different options if you're desiring this particular thing in a relationship. No, I know ladies don't want to hear that, but it's just that lesson. You don't have to hear it if you want to. The lesson will continue to show itself, continue to manifest. So this individual right here, she can go into that space, but then at the same time, she also has a lot of flexibility where she doesn't stay locked in. So again, this is a woman that in the long run is highly valuable, highly prized, and will be sought after. This is the type of woman that they got the staying power. They got the staying power, so that way you can still connect and maintain a level of resilience together because of her scores. That water score is a bonding aspect. You know, um, and the metal is sustainable boundary, support, structure, right? And then the air is innovative, stimulating, probably, um, able to problem solve. So these are great attributes to keep the continuity, um, in the relationship. All right. So when we look at that, so that's her elements. Her strong elements are metal, air, and the water. So what type of environments does she thrive in a relationship? What she needs in her relationship for her to thrive? Meaningful relationships. Relationships have to be very purposeful. She doesn't do well, doesn't desire like a casual relationship. In other words, unintentional. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be in one particular framework. It means that it's meaningful on the soul level because she's androgynous. She has androgynous energy. Um, and then she has that strong water. So she's got to be able to feel and definitely connected. But then that metal I want a sense of direction. I want to have a sense of direction. I want to have this level of flexibility, understanding, this level, so it's very intentional. Okay. Very reflective. She loves relationships. She loves to, environments that allows her to be real with herself. She doesn't feel like she has to put on a mask. She wants to be fully at one, or environments where it's fully at a space where you can be reflective, or you like the reflective feel in a relationship. You feel like, what? I can see myself inside my lover, and my lover can see themselves inside me. That really, you know, that really elevates and gets everything going. Um, so that in the environment also was very strong is emotional support. The emotional support is very big. And also, she doesn't like a relationship that seems to be dwelling on ignorance. She needs the level of um, competency in the relationship to for her to feel like she can thrive, right? She needs to be able to, and so she's looking for different things in a relationship. It's not really about passion first because she has that low score of fire. It's really about the stimulation and the purpose and the intention and the bonding. Those is what gets her going, and that's what gets her arousal going. So in a relationship, if she's in a scenario where it's highly, we talk about arousing and moving each other in that space, and it seems like it can't go to a different level, it's going to shut her down. It's going to shut her down, and she doesn't go feel grounded at all. So there's a different little makeup with her in that. So she definitely loves to learn new experiences. So it has to be soulfully memorable to her. She thrives in that type of environment. So now the environments that doesn't do well by her in a relationship is too fast paced. Everything's got to be boom, 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 boom. Everything is transactional. Everything is on demand. That doesn't do well with her. Overly ambitious. That's not. She likes the clarity. She likes to be able to execute and move towards intentional things, but she doesn't really want over excessive ambition. Like we got to do this. We got to prove something. We got to do this because it starts to feel performative to her. So it doesn't really do very well. But she also doesn't do well in restrictive type of relationships or environments. Okay. Definitely she can't deal with folk that's going to implement instability in their dynamics, right? So in other words, people are not mindful of managing the relationship uh, because remember, they're not trying to police people. They trust in how you regulate yourself. So it's kind of like they're looking like it's common sense to know if we share in this space that we know is required to keep certain things maintained. If you don't show competency for that, she's good. Matter of fact, she's going to resist that, okay? Because that's that androgynous dominant energy, and she's not going to make a whole bunch of hoopla about it, but she's going to reposition herself. All right. So some of the challenges when we base it off of her soul elements, and again, some of you just chiming in. This is based off of the book, so I'm basically interpreting, doing her reading based upon all the information that's kind of set inside the book, based off her element scores. And her strong element scores are the metal, air, and the water. So her challenges is that due to the fact she has a weaker earthwood, um, in relationships, probably in the past or present, I don't know this individual, like I mean, personally like that. They probably have a difficulty creating stability in the relationship. Now they got the metal, so not saying that they can't, but there's this natural, just this level, this piece to keep us, just to keep the level of stability there. She might run into that, or she hasn't. She probably is self-aware enough to pay attention to um, what will be a fracture in the relationship, and so she's probably very mindful to make sure she creates stability. But based off of her earthwood element, there's a strong likelihood that she has difficulty creating stability. Okay, if she's really pulling a lot from the earthwood in the relationship because there's nothing to pull from. All right. So some relationship challenge that she might deal is attracting inconsistent people, people that are inconsistent. And she probably like, well, why keep attracting inconsistent people? Well, in your energy, you know, you got a strong metal, so you provide that structure, that guidance. So inconsistent people, sometimes you'll manifest the opposite. Nothing personal against you. It's off what your energy can bring. So you probably, you probably see those challenges come. Um, Another challenge that it probably deals with when you look at the low fire uh, and the low earthwood is that there's difficulty maintaining routines together, and that's what I mean. And that works very closely with creating stability, because creating stability is not more of a defined thing. It can look like that. People with the strong metal are okay. This is defined. This is the standard. This is what we stand on. The earth is more. Their standard is based on consistency of routine, and that's where the difficulty in creating stability comes at. Not from the metal aspect saying can you put structure but boundary. No, she got that. That's natural. That's a natural thing. But to make and you can do that with no feeling. That's another thing too. The metal might not feel, but the earth feels. So even though we got this structure in place, we're still able to feel each other. We're not just doing it because that's the rule or that's the expectation. We understand that we can still revolve around each other, have a structure, have a standard, and have a routine that allows us to be able to still feel each other. And that's important for her because she has strong water in her soul profile. All right. And so one of the things is, and that can happen. And so when we find ourselves, it's like we're always attracting the wrong person or the misaligned person. A lot of times it can come just from that because the attraction is we actually bring something, but it's not really aligned with where what our design is. And so that's the nuance inside the attraction. That's all I try to say. Everybody says like kind attracts like, and opposite attracts also what we avoid it, and also what we admire. So there's different domains of attraction that kicks in. And so these are probably some challenges that she probably definitely sees. Um, then also she might get accused of having lack of passion. There's low fire there, and there's low earthwood there. Earthwood, that very connective, that intimacy and that fire is right there. Remember I said like her intimate spark comes from clarity of direction, her being mentally really stimulated, being inspired too, and also having a deep bonding effect, emotional vulnerability, and and all that. So it's different. It's almost you got to hit her from the um, emotional inspiration, intellect type of hit. It's a different thing. It's not just strictly mental, but it's like it got to be a good blend. So it's a little, and that might throw people off because that's not typically expected when we're talking about a woman's attractive quote about them. But for her, due to all the androgynous energy and this, that's what it is for her. And so it might look rocky in your relationship dealings or in your attractions because this is just kind of different. Not because something off with you, is because a lot of times we're pretty much primarily structured society influence wise to only attract a certain way or to inquire or to try to connect in a certain way where that's not really your natural mo. Okay. So some shadow attractions that probably comes that are challenges is people that are too materialistic. She's not, she doesn't like all that overemphasis between I mean, with being materialistic. Also, workaholics. She probably has dealt with a lot of workaholics, and that's already a violation because that takes away the deep connection of the water that she wants and the inspiration and the refreshing that she needs from the air. So a lot of times, workaholics is a no go for her. All right, and so when you continue to look into this, so here's the thing: when you look at her, like I said, she has strong metal, strong air, and strong water. So what do people experience from you? They get a lot of soothing, so that lets me know you're, a lot of soothing. You get like a level of magnetism from you. There's a nurturing about you. You're very empathic, right? There's just like a lightness that you bring. You don't require nothing really heavy. Even though you have strong metal, your energy is not heavy, right? It's not dense. It's very light, you know, um, in terms of what people. So and people love that. People draw to that. So if you don't have people drawn to you, then we got to look at what are you blocking inside yourself, because you know you should have people, because you just have this very balanced, you know, view of life, this natural wit. You're not complicated. People, people, like that. They gravitate toward it. Now, they might not be able to know how to handle it and stay with it. That's why they keep coming to you, because you got that. so so they might, they're benefiting, but they're not aligned with you. So let me talk about that real fast, especially with the androgynous energy. People with a lot of androgynous energy and people with a lot of air um, in their score, even people with a lot of earthwood in their score. Alignment is important for everybody across the board, but alignment is very big. And I like to call something when I'm doing coaching sessions, things like that. I like to talk about, I call it the VAR, VAR, value aligned relationships. And this is one of the things we bring out in our soul choice um, model, to help people to begin to see clearly outside their own bias of what really is properly aligned there, and then be able to see is, are y'all value aligned? Because everyone you might have sexual compatibility with, everyone you might have a social compatibility with, they might not be someone you lock a level of shared mission together with. That doesn't mean you have to dismiss them. It's not what I'm saying, but they might not fit that. And a lot of times, well, oh, we got this, and then you put them in the position where they wasn't really slotted for. So one way to help to look through that and vet through that is to really be mindful of your value aligned relationships. What does that look like? And the biggest thing is, because most breakups in relationships is I mean, we hear all this stuff being said out there, cheating, all this stuff. But one of the main things that's really the big divider in relationships is when the picture with inside yourself no longer match each other. When it no longer matches each other, the shared image is gone, is violated or dwindled, or it has changed somewhere. And when the picture, internal picture, is changes, it's eventually going to proceed over into the social dynamics inside the relationship. A lot of times that happens so silently we don't recognize it. Now, with someone with a lot of androgynous energy, that's very important. It's very important to make sure that your lovers are open to your inner picture, and that they mirror as you mirror them. It's very important, because you need that to thrive in a relationship. You need that. And it's not something like, oh, I can do it. It has to just be a natural thing in the relationship. That's what brings a lot of your juiciness, per se, you know, into a relationship. And again, it's a little different. A lot of people, because think about air, right? If you try to catch it, you can't. So they're going by a different dynamic. If you want more insight about the air, I have a audio uh, drop broken down about that, talking about the air dominant personas, air dominant personalities, because it breaks that down. Because they all the elements going to bring the way we relate to each other a little differently, but the air is different for a lot of people, especially if you're coming from a traditional mindset. You come from a particular mold to have somebody operating in. These things might bother you because you don't know, you're not adaptable enough. Well, androgynous energy, they indirectly command that to be adaptable. Are you adaptable? So when you look at people that lacks a neutral score in their profile, have weak water scores, has weak earthwood scores, have weak air scores, and definitely weak hydrogen scores, I already know that. And one way we look at it is that also contributes over to the relationship resilience. I know there's a low resilience there, but also just being able to still, be flexible with each other. It's a, it's a low. It's probably not likely. Okay, so people, but that's what people get from you. Also, you uplift people mentally. So you have all these different qualities that brings people there, and they feel stimulated. Um, and of course, you're going to resist the closed-minded, right? I think I said it before. Um, uh, People that are very dormant, like stagnant mindsets, don't even try to even give that a go because that's just not going to work and mix well with you at all. All right. So these are the things, about her. So when I look now, here's interesting thing, right? When I look into her elements, so what really works for you? What's the right soul element combination that fits you? When you look at your scores, when I look at that, um, you do well with individuals that hold a strong water score, a strong air score, and a strong fire score. That makes sense. Now in that scenario right there is the earthwood score is still low, but the fire is high and strong. So let's just realize is that you can still flow according to the living soul numerology soul system where we're reading, and these are based upon universal principles and laws behind it. So under forces of life. So looking at it is like you still can flow and still be optimal in yourself with somebody if they don't have the earthwood you need. If they got the fire and the air and the water, you good, and it can dial down the metal score because you got plenty of metal score for extra for inside the relationship. It's all about trying to find the balance. Also understand that too. Energetically, relationships, whether we act like it or not, is trying to move to the balance. And so this is what the beautiful thing about androgynous energy is. Androgynous energy is the energy that keeps the masculine and feminine moving towards each other. Okay. We hear a lot about masculine and feminine separate. We don't hear about the androgynous energy. But that's even in the psychological brain, in the brain dynamics, there is a middle piece that keeps the left brain and right brain together, the corpus callosum. So it's even physically, it's shoulder, and the energy is just mirroring what we have that. Okay. So another energetic sequence that works for you. So I said the first energetic sequence works for you is the water, air, and fire. But the other one sequence that works well with you is strong earth, wood, water, and metal. And the fire just goes, it goes up in there, in there a little bit. So the earth, wood, water, and fire. So these two sequences, these two element sequences, the first one, water, air, and fire, will do well by you. And the earth, wood, water, and metal. What I mean is that the elements are dominant in that, and it's going to be able to suit and kind of match you and help you understand your attraction matrix, right? So that way you're more likely to be more in your high attractive matrix versus in your repulsive matrix. So if you find yourself always attracting the wrong people, you probably are not falling in line the right rhythm in the attraction matrix. And these are things that we go over in our deep dives, in our private groups and things like that. And some of you that's listen, I have we to get all this and learn all this, we have a Living Soul Numerology Foundation course, that will be out so people kind of get the basics. There's several books on it, but most importantly is you can join our group, right? And right now we're running a special for $6 a month in the Soul House. You can go to my YouTube link and just join right there. And because there's so much stuff in the library, there's so much stuff, audios, visuals, and digital books, and then also meeting and working through, and then also certain deep dives that we do that you can get a lot of this information and get a lot of additional understanding if you so desire that. So when I look at the water, air, and the fire, we have something we call like so. That what that lets me realize is that this person, you do well with people with a good lover energy, and lover energy is a feminine neutral. So they're not judgmental. They're very open, very fluid. So even though you have a lot of this metal, you appreciate and have an aspect to you where you need this level of fluidity, this level of spontaneity, right? Because you you have this adjustableness to you because all that water, but the spontaneity might be a silent issue in past relationships or right now because you naturally you're I'm not saying you can't, but your natural uh expression, your natural defaults in what you do and how you operate in a relationship is probably not spontaneity is probably not on the top. Why? Because you got low fire and you have low earthwood and spontaneity is more connected to well, let me correct that. You can be spontaneous. I'll apologize for that. Air is also spontaneous, but but also it can be a problem because you have that fire. And so when you put the fire and the earth together, the lack of low fire and the low earth, that kind of can make your spontaneity be challenged. What I was trying to get at. It's not that you don't. You actually got to. You probably can be and really like it. You're not resistant to it. Let's put it like that. You're not resistant to it. You're very inviting to it for spontaneity. But you might not really. Some people it's easy. Some people they love that spontaneous. It's that da, da, da. That's probably not your first inclination. Is what I'm getting at. And you don't have to change yourself. It's just recognize that thing. So if you are in a relationship, someone that brings that, value that, encourage that because it's going to help bring it outside of you. But you do have it. You got it strong. And with the strong air can be very spontaneous. It's very open and very unpredictable. And so it has all the aspects to it. But with that fire being low, and then the earth, when you look at it all together, you're like, okay, because you got strong metal, so that metal kick in. So that right now your three down that metal might quiet the air. Then you got no fire, right? And then the earth, so it just all together, it just kind of quench. I think your spontaneity might be quenched when you're in a relationship type space. So I could be on a team. Yes. All right. And so that lover energy do well. So that lover energy is very unconventional. The lover energy is non-judgmental. The lover energy, it's into beauty. It loves relationship. It loves to bond without all the extra restrictions. That's what you really like. You probably draw to people that exude that. So you probably like, why I draw? You probably have a silent Nick. Even though you got all that metal, you probably got it's funny because I know some people got metal like why am I drawn to like eclectic people or people that are very creative? Well, you have a desire for that lover energy a little bit. And they also can conflict, but in your case, it's not a lot of tension there. All right, there's not a lot of um, things wrapping up. Actually, it's something that your energy and your soul is really desiring. It connects very well with that lover type of energy. Look at it when we look at that type of force, the type of energy that comes. All right. And then also we look at we call like the conservatory energy, right? So it's efficient, it's very connective, it can really bond, but it's very practical, very sensual. So it's very interesting. The lover energy comes from the part of ourselves that's sexual, and then the conservator energy comes from the spark that is sensual. I need to be able to feel. I need to feel like I'm bonded. I'm connected, and then I also want to be able to just be free and uninhibited. So you will draw to this. Okay, you will draw to this, or you would invite it to you. Okay, and so these are the things that kind of works inside your attraction matrix that you might find happening and occurring. So that's what's up. So again, this individual soul numbers is 6862. Let me see what some of y'all have right here before we hop off of here. But if some of you are interested in me doing a live reading based off of the elements of attraction, like I said, I encourage you to grab my book. If you grab it, I appreciate it. You can the link will be available right here, or you can inbox me on Facebook or whatever. Or you can go to my YouTube channel uh, link and get in there and and get it. But this is pretty much what their element of attraction will all entails. And also, is there deeper reports that I do? Oh yes, there's. This is just giving you some good understanding that's non-biased. That's a good thing too. You get insight that's non-biased to help understand yourself, help understand your lover, help see your lover, help understand relationships. Someone said workspace. Absolutely. Team building, putting people in the right position, the right roles to create the right environment for success or for certain results to be accomplished. That's um, what we're typically trying to go after and go, to be desired in the relationship type space in the variety of what they are. Okay. So that's what's up. So I got more people that submitted some stuff. So you want me to do anonymous reading for you, you can email wisdomtherapeutics1 at gmail.com, and or you can text 1-844-5 wisdom, and provide your date of birth, include your year you was born, and like I said, and I have a list, and we'll hop on here and have these episodes. Now, after a while, some of these episodes are going to be also on my Patreon and also inside the Soul House. So there'll be some additional readings that probably go a little more deeper than what I do right here. Just on the YouTube live right here. All right, so let's check this out. I appreciate that. Peace, peace. Okay. So that's what's up. So we'll touch back down again. Hey, one love. Go ahead and share this. Hey, y'all be easy.